In this video lesson, we're going to cover the main rules for pronouns on GMAT sentence correction. So pronouns are basically a type of word that supposed to replace nouns to avoid repetition. And the four main rules that we're going to cover today that I would like you to take away are: number one, pronouns have antecedents, or antecedents are the nouns that those pronouns are supposed to replace. So a correct sentence must have an antecedent for every pronoun that is in it. And the pronoun and its antecedent must agree number. So the antecedent, if the antecedent is in plural form, then the pronouns has to be in plural form. Or if the antecedent is in singular form, then the pronoun has to be in singular form. The pronoun and the antecedent must make sense together. We're gonna have some examples for this later on to help you clearly understand what it means for the pronouns and the antecedent to make sense together. And the fourth rule is no ambiguity. So meaning if there are pronouns in the sentence, we have no problem figuring out what those pronouns refer to. But of these four rules, the first three, the top three, are must-have rules for correct sentence correction answer choice. The fourth rule, no ambiguity, is sort of like you can consider that a medium priority rule, meaning we don't eliminate an answer choice right away just because the pronouns are ambiguous. We're going to rely on this error if we cannot find any other errors to eliminate the answer choices, right? So say if you eliminate 3 answer choices, you come down to you narrow down to just 2 answer choices, and then you cannot find any other errors to keep eliminating one of the 2. Then you're going to rely on, if there are any ambiguous pronouns, if there are pronouns that you aren't sure what exactly those pronouns are referring to, then you're going to use that to eliminate the one answer choice. Okay, so don't jump right away to eliminate the answer choice just because the pronouns are ambiguous. Don't do that. Try to find other errors first, and then if you can't find anything else, you can resort to ambiguous pronouns to eliminate answer choices. Okay, so first let's dive a little deeper into the types of pronouns there are and how they are used, especially on the GMAT. The first type of pronoun is called relative pronoun. So they are basically pronouns that open up a modifier, and that modifier itself is a subject and verb clause. So for example, that, which, who, whom, whose, these are relative pronouns. And there are a few things you want to remember. Who always modifies people, or who is always used to refer to people, and not objects or entities or anything that are non-people. And who is always going to be used as the subject of the verb in that clause, that modifier, subject verb clause modifier that is opened up by this relative pronoun who. Whom, on the other hand, is got to be the object of that clause, and whom also modifies people or always refers to people, and whom never refers to things or anything that is non-people. Whose can be used to modify both people and things. It doesn't have to stay strictly to people, right? So whose can be used to modify both. All right, so another thing we want to take into account to remember is that or whom can be dropped or can be omitted if they are used as objects for a subject verb clause that follows. For example, the movie that we watched last Friday was scary. You can drop this relative pronoun that to have the movie we watched last Friday was scary. This is good enough. Another thing, especially on the GMAT, there's something that you want to remember, which is using where versus in which. Where is only used for referring to specific places or physical places, like an area, a house, a building, a country, an apartment, that kind of stuff, a park. But when you get to sort of like metaphorical places or metaphorical concepts, like a condition, a situation, a case, an agreement, a circumstance, context, um, yeah, something that is more metaphorical, more abstract, then you would need to use in which instead of where to refer to those metaphorical or abstract places or concepts. That's what GMAT not only prefers, but that's what GMAT dictates. So for example, we had an agreement where he cooked and I cleaned, because where is being used to modify agreement or refer to agreement, but sorry, arrangement. But arrangement is not a physical place. So we cannot use where here. We have to use in which, not to in which to refer to arrangement. Okay. All right. And another thing, another relative pronoun you want to pay attention to is when versus in which. So kind of similar to where, when is only used to refer to specific time, event, time, or period, age, year, or month, or week, something like that. Nouns that specifically refer to time periods. But when you want to use a relative pronoun to refer to something that is, again, more metaphorical, more abstract, something like a contract or an agreement or a process, a procedure or context, then you're going to use when, you're going to use in which. All right. Okay. The next, we're going to go into specifically the 4 rules that we discussed above about the usage of pronouns on the GMAT. So the first rule is antecedents. The antecedents must exist. So again, what is an antecedent? Pronouns are used to replace certain nouns to avoid repetition. So those nouns that those pronouns are supposed to replace, they are the antecedent. For example, the park rangers discuss measures to, well, actually, let's skip this sentence. Let's pick something that is more basic. So for example, my cat loves scratches. I bought it a new scratchy toy. Right. So in this particular example, you can see that do you have a pronoun, and that is it. The word it here refers to the noun that precedes it, which is my cat. So cat is the antecedent in this case. So for it to be properly used, it must have an antecedent. And in this case, it does have an antecedent name. That is cat. Say if I don't have the antecedent, I just have the sentence that follows. I bought it new scratchy toys. Well, in this case, we don't have an antecedent for the pronoun it, so it becomes difficult to understand what it refers to. And so this is an incomplete or incorrect, improperly written sentence for GMAT sentence correction. Now, say if the antecedent is not right, it's not, does not come before the pronoun, what would happen? So, for example, So say, for example, in this case, we are having the pronoun his. And if we read the full sentence, we can figure out that, okay, so his is referring to Tom Aspinall, the subject of the sentence. So Tom Aspinall is the antecedent for the pronoun his, but it doesn't actually come before this pronoun. It actually comes, it's placed after that pronoun. So is it okay? Yes, this is completely fine on the GMAT. But the key thing you want to remember here is that the antecedent for that pronoun must exist. It cannot be just like a pronoun by itself. Stay placed in the sentence all along without an antecedent. Right. A second rule we want to remember is that the pronoun and its antecedent must agree in number. And I think this is rather straightforward. So if the antecedent is in plural form, then the pronoun must be in plural form. And if the antecedent is in singular form, then the pronoun must be in singular form. All right. And the third rule that we briefly touched on earlier, now we're going to go a little bit deeper, is that the pronoun and the antecedent must make sense together. What does that mean? So let's take a look at this example. Although the term supercomputer may sound fanciful or exaggerated, is simply an extremely fast mainframe that can execute trillions of calculations every second. All right, so the term supercomputer sound fanciful or exaggerated. You can see that the pronoun it is being used here and is referring to the term supercomputer. But why is it wrong? Well, the reason is because is the term supercomputer itself, the term or the word supercomputer itself, is it an extremely fast mainframe that can execute trillions of calculations every second? Or it is the supercomputer itself, not the term, not the name, that is an extremely fast mainframe that can execute trillions of calculations every second? Well, clearly, it's got to be the supercomputer itself, not the name, not the term. So the way to correct it is to clearly identify that, okay, we are talking about the term in the first instance of the sentence. But then it pronoun here, okay, it's still referring to this term, but then the verb becomes, this term refers to an extremely fast mainframe. So now we separate what is the thing that can execute trillions. It is the mainframe, not the term. Not the name supercomputer itself. So this is something that we have to pay special attention to because GMAT loves to test along this kind of logic, this kind of trap. All right, so the fourth rule is ambiguity, no ambiguity with pronoun usage. So let's take a look at this example. John encouraged Jerry to start a pest control business because he felt that the residents of the city would be willing to pay for the same. We have the pronoun he here, but the problem becomes, what does he refer to? Does he refer to John or Jerry? What does he really refer to? John or Jerry? We don't know. And that's the problem. Because we both have these two kind of male nouns in front of he, the pronoun he here, John and Jerry. So it becomes unclear what it refers to. Now, maybe we can figure out that, okay, because the verb is felt that the residents of the city would be willing to pay for the same. So it might make sense that the person, the pronoun he here is referring to John instead of Jerry. But for GMAT sentence correction, that is too much work. That's not clear enough. So the best answer choice, the correct answer choice, got to make it clear right away that what the pronoun is referring to without us readers having to guess, having to rely on the context to guess what it refers to. Okay. All right. And so now let's go get to kind of some last nitty-gritty details of pronoun usage on the GMAT. And these are especially important because you're not going to find this anywhere else. especially with other English tests like IELTS or TOEIC, TOEFL. This is specifically GMAT required. Okay, so I'm on page 53. I forgot to mention that. I'm on page 53 of the course book. You can turn to this page to make it easier to follow. All right. Extra rules for pronoun usage. So the four pronouns, this, that, these, those have specific rules. And the first rule is that you can use these pronouns as adjectives in front of nouns, or in other words, these four pronouns must be followed by nouns. They cannot stand by themselves. So what does it mean? Okay, so for example, new nanopapers incorporate fibers that give these materials strength. All right, so you have the noun materials following the pronoun these here. So this is a correct sentence. But say if we remove that, noun materials to have just new nanopapers incorporate fibers that give these strength, then the problem becomes, what does these refer to? Once again, if we have to guess what these refers to, probably fibers, then that's not good enough for GMAT sentence correction. It has to be clear right away. Okay, and so that's the first rule for using this, that, these, and those. They have to be followed by nouns, or if not nouns, they have to be followed by modifiers. For example, the money spent by her parents is less than that spent by her children. In this case, we can see that spent by her children is a modifier for that pronoun that. That is not standing by itself. And the reason is that there must be a modifier, so that we gotta make it clear what the pronoun this, that, these, those refers to, and the modifier here helps with that tremendously. All right. So that's the second rule. And the third rule is that if we want to use these four pronouns to refer to new copy of a certain nouns or something of a similar nature to a noun that already appears in the sentence, then they must agree in number. So what does that mean? So let's say if I want to compare two things, her company and a company of her competitors. Let's say I want to compare two things. Her company, which is singular, and her competitor's company, which is also singular. So if I want to compare these two things, what I want to do is to I can use the relative pronoun that in this case. I can use a relative pronoun that in this case to refer to her competitor's company. So the correct way to write that is her company is outperforming that of her competitor. If we use those, then it is incorrect, not just because we are trying to compare a singular company with another singular company, but also because if we want to use a relative pronoun to replace to create a new copy of this original company, then we have to follow the rule of must agree in number. So instead of using the plural those, we have to use the singular that. But then if I want to actually compare one company with several companies, if I want to compare one company with several companies, then we're going to use this version. Repeat the nouns, repeat the original noun. Her company is outperforming companies of her competitors, or her competitors' companies with the apostrophe. That makes sense. That is correct on the GMAT. This, even though this seems like grammatically correct, this is still not correct on GMAT sentence correction. The GMAT sentence correction refers if you use relative pronoun, then it has to agree in number with the original noun. If you want to compare one singular thing with plural things, then you have to repeat the noun. So companies, repeat the word company, put it in plural. All right, so that's the third rule for using the four pronouns: this, that, these, and those. All right, and other pronouns like their, itself, themselves, the rules for using them are already clearly stated in textbook, so you can follow what's written in textbook. Not much else to elaborate on. So that's it for this video lesson. Thank you.